With a review like this, I feel the need to start off by saying I might be a tiny bit biased. Over the last week and a half, I've been replaying Pokemon Crystal, which I chose specifically because I'm trying to capture Celebi to help finish off my living Pokédex. So Pokemon has always been kind of a big part of my life. However, because I like it so much, I hope I have enough discernment to be able to hold this movie up to a certain standard. I want one of my favorite franchises to be treated well. Detective Pikachu takes perhaps the most financially successful media franchise, known for these quirky creatures that battle one another, and turns it into a rather basic mystery story. With the help of a talking Pikachu, Tim Goodman searches for his missing father. They journey through several colorful places, plenty of Pokemon popping in for brief cameos. This movie is very obviously defined by its fan service, and this is actually a strange case where I think that indulgence actually serves to make the film stronger. Because the film has to constantly think about where it can feature Pokemon, all these shots always have background events going on where something's happening. There's a main storyline, but then there's always some Pokemon doing something cute in the background. So there's always some visual energy carrying this film, even if the main story is kind of dragging along. The designs of the Pokemon have been a big part of the discussion leading into the film's release. They went with a pseudo-realistic style for all of them, and it was a little bit jarring at first, but I think we've mostly adjusted. And I really like the way they captured all these little behaviors among the Pokemon. Like, I love this scene where Pangoro is just sitting on a bench in the background, and you see these Pancham children just climbing all over him, and he just has this annoyed expression. Or there's this Trico just clinging to the glass of a receptionist's desk. There's so much life in these CGI creatures. Because it puts so much effort into fitting the Pokemon into the scene, I feel that this film actually manages to avoid a lot of the issues I have with the modern Hollywood blockbuster. A lot of these films kind of fall back on the shot reverse shot, like medium close-up style filmmaking, and even though this film does have that, it's always at least considering where it can put something in the background, so that everything is always slightly framed, where there's at least a Pokemon doing something. So, it's not exactly awe-inspiring, but for a standard Hollywood film, this is actually rather visually pleasant. Unfortunately, the story is rather bland. This could be forgiven. There are a lot of action films I love that don't really have much of a plot, but this is one of those cases where it actually kind of detracts from everything. About halfway through, we get kind of stuck with just Tim, Pikachu, the reporter Lucy, and her Psyduck, and they don't really do much together, and they seem to lose track of trying to keep all these different Pokemon in the background of shots. The interactions between Reynolds' Pikachu and Justice Smith's Tim Goodman are actually rather fun. They have a lot of good dialogue together, and there's actually some heartfelt moments. Everything else kind of falls apart, though. Like, Lucy isn't a good character, some of her dialogue is atrocious, and when we get into the final third of the movie, just the entire mystery kind of just falls apart. There's a lot of fun scenes, but the actual story just It's during this extended sequence where we find the two main human characters together with their Pokemon where I'm reminded who's behind this film. I don't know why the director of Shark Tale and Gulliver's Travels was put in charge of what should have been an important step in a really big franchise. This is a film consisting of several small fun sequences, but never really has anything come together at the end. It doesn't feel like a cohesive piece. It feels like this is Ryan Reynolds having fun and a visual effects team doing a lot of work, and then everything is just kind of mashed together in the end. Ultimately, your enjoyment of Detective Pikachu largely relies on how invested you are in Pokemon to begin with. If you can look past all the mundane plot details, there's a lot of fun scenes throughout. I might be coming off rather harshly, but I was having fun through the whole experience. I just know they could do better. The main thing I found myself thinking about after finishing this movie is how I'd have loved to just have more scenes where I can just quietly observe the Pokemon. Minimize the plot. In the end, this is a movie where I'm more focused on what's in the background than what's in the foreground, and that's a problem. I'm not saying it needs to be a nature documentary or something like that, but I think that would actually have been a fun idea. Or even just go back to the root of the series, go to Pokemon Red and Blue, have this just be about some kid traveling along with his Pokemon companions, getting into battles. Focus on the Pokemon. Don't distract us with this weird detective plot that doesn't really do much. I put Detective Pikachu in the same camp I put Alita Battle Angel. This is a movie that has all the right elements for a strong visual spectacle, but then it bogs itself down with a story that it doesn't even seem that invested in telling. Like Alita, I think this film deserves a reserved recommendation, with hopes that an inevitable follow-up will realize action doesn't need too much justification. Despite these flaws, Detective Pikachu still has enough going for it that anyone interested should walk away satisfied, if longing for a bit more.